Hi guys, I'm Becky Albertalli and I'm the author of Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. As many of you may know, it got released into a movie March 2018. You should go see it if you haven't. But many people have emailed me and sent in questions that they would like me to answer, so let's get to the interview with Becky Albertalli. To start off, the first question is, what made me decide to write this book? Well, I had two influences that I would say helped me write this book or made me decide to write this book. One was a book called The Perks of Being a Wildflower, and another one was from an Australian author named Jacqueline Moriarty, who writes to young adults and young audiences like I do. I would say these were my main influences because the way they both wrote about their characters made me feel very connected to them. I didn't feel like I was just reading their description off of a page. I felt very related to them. I could connect with them, and in parts of their books, I could feel like I wasn't alone in my thoughts, and that was really the goal for my book. I didn't want to just write down a description on a piece of paper of the characters. I wanted my readers and my audience to feel very connected and relate to each of the characters. The second question I have is, who is my favorite character? Well, obviously it's Simon, not only because he is the main character of the book. I just feel like he's very brave, and I just love the character that he turned in to be. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but I feel most related to Simon. So he is definitely my favorite character. Okay, let me find another question. Okay, throughout the book, Simon mentions and questions why being straight is the default in society or the norm. Was this viewpoint important to you? Yes, this was a very important viewpoint to me. It definitely grew on me as I was writing the book. In one of the emails that Simon was writing Blue, he mentions that being straight is the default and he doesn't understand why. He says that people shouldn't just have to come out to say that they're gay. You should have to come out if you're straight or gay. At the end of the book, we meet Blue, who is Bram, and Simon obviously didn't know he was black, and of course Simon didn't care, but Bram says that when Simon had mentioned that being straight is the default, Bram was like, I feel like white is a default. And Simon never really thought about that because he's never really had to, and it never crossed his mind. Simon realizes that these two questions cannot be answered with his and Bram's own experiences, but I do think it is important that we understand that privilege forms our views and the way that we think, and we should try to eliminate the cultural diversity or the cultural defaults that people always assume. Alright, let me find another. Okay. Becky, knowing that you are a psychologist as well as a writer, how much of your time do you spend writing each day? Like, do you have a deadline to get certain parts of the book done? Did you write at a certain time? This is a really good question because I don't really have a specific answer to. I have two children, and I try to write whenever I can. There's not really a set time I can write. During the mornings, I drop my kids off at daycare. And while they're at daycare, that's when I'm able to squeeze in some writing. I'm also able to write if the kids are napping. They don't like to go down for naps, but if they're napping, then I can sit down and write. If they're sitting on the couch and watching TV, I can try to squeeze in writing. But most of the time, I just try to squeeze it in whenever I can. If I have a deadline that my publishers are like, you need to get it done or you need to get it to me by this time, then I'll either get up really early in the morning or I'll stay up really late, or I'll just try to do it on the weekends. But basically, to sum it up, I just do it whenever I can. Question number 5. Did being a high school psychologist play a role in writing the book, especially creating and describing what Simon went through and what he thought? I'm very glad I got this question. I feel like it is very important for me to answer. I've really enjoyed the time I've spent with my high school students. Working in that type of environment certainly has helped me make this book and write the book and how to base the characters. I'm always careful not to create my characters off of my clients. My clients trust me with their private information, and I don't want them to lose our trust. Nothing is more important to me than keeping their information confidential, but I do get very inspired by getting to talk with them and getting to know them. I let their wisdom and bravery inspire me, inspire my writing too, and how I go about life. Of course, it's definitely helped me write this book, so I'm so thankful that I've gotten to work with those kids. Another question, were you expecting to get certain reactions from your book? Or what kind of reactions have you gotten? I was not trying to get a certain reaction from my book. I wasn't focused on it. My goal was to get a message across to my readers, which was it's okay to be different. Straight and white should not be the default, and we need to try to eliminate that. I got very many reactions about Simon, the main character. Every time I got a reaction from my book, or like an email or a tweet or a text, whatever, it always put a smile on my face because that was my work and I was just very proud of it. A lot of the reactions that I got came from LGBTQ teens that felt a real connection with Simon. They felt related to him or something similar that they went through. What gives me a huge honor is that I get these emails and that this book has helped them with the process of coming out to friends and family, and that just melts my heart. Like, I love it. I enjoy writing for a young adult audience. I do. I love every part of it. It fascinates me on how many people can relate to the characters in my book that I wrote about. I try to make the characters feel real so that people could connect to them, so they would be interested in the book and it would get them to keep reading. The book that I wrote was... When you first started writing the book, did you already have the characters in mind, or did you let them develop as you were writing? So, to be honest, I did a little bit of both. I had an idea of some of the characters, but as I was writing, that's when they really got developed. I was able to just slide them right in and let it flow. I felt like it was easier to just come up with their descriptions or to just write them as I was going. It just made them flow better with the story, and I wasn't concentrating and having to be like, you need to focus on like, this is what they want them to be, or this is what you need them to be. I just feel like my writing was better that way, and it made the story better. Do you read and reply to questions or emails sent to you by your readers? Yes, of course I do. I feel like it's very important for me, especially, to connect with my readers. It lets me get feedback on my writing, and especially with this book. Simon went through a lot, being a 16-year-old gay male. He kept it in for so long. In the book, he mentions that he's always kind of known a little bit of him was gay. It was definitely hard for him to come out. And I've gotten many questions on how to come out. But when I come across these questions, I have no idea how to respond because I've never experienced that. I've never had to go through that. It's just something that I wrote about because I thought that it's something... Here's another question. When it comes to the conclusion of the book, how did you decide to write it? And is there any other way you would have chose to write it if you could? So that's that's a little bit of a tricky question. Throughout my book, the emails between Simon, who was Jock, and Bram, who was Blue, I added clues from both of them to try and let the readers figure out, like, who was Blue, and obviously we already know who was Simon, but Simon kind of gave more clues or more obvious clues than Blue did. He wasn't as careful as Blue was. Blue didn't really want Simon to know, but Simon wanted Blue to know. Simon just felt very comfortable in a very close connection to Blue, and he had no problem sharing those things with him. But Blue was very careful with what he said. He didn't want to just give himself away. Honestly, I'm pretty proud of myself how I ended the book. Many readers say they felt a little bit dumb after finding out who Blue was, because it seemed hard at first, but if you don't look too far into it, I didn't try to make it hard. I didn't want it to be that way. I just want it to be I kind of wanted it to be like, oh, duh, like, why didn't you choose that? I wouldn't have chose to write it any other way. I feel like that was, for me, many of my friends and many of the emails that I've gotten, people are like, oh, like, duh, like, how did I not guess? Because Blue, Bram, Abraham, president, and Greenfield, 118 was his birthday. I kind of made it seem hard, but kind of like tricky. Like, you didn't have to think outside the box. You kind of just had to like narrow it down to a few things. I tried not to mention Bram so much in the beginning of the story so that I could do that with my conclusion. And not gonna lie, pretty proud of that. Here's one last question I'm gonna do to close it out. I'm sure I and your other readers are dying to know, but are you creating a sequel? The answer is yes. I did create a sequel. It's very similar to Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, but it's written from another perspective. As you may know, Leah, who is Simon's best friend, one of his best friends in the book, it's written from her perspective. It's called Leah on and off the beat. In that book, it focuses more on Leah because we knew her from being Simon's best friend, but we find out more about her, and you're really going to love it, so check it out. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into my little interview. Thought that this might be helpful to answer some questions, and I had fun. Please go see the movie. It's amazing. Read Leah on and off the beat, and bye, guys.